He had no shoes. His first football was a sock stuffed with newspaper. At 9 years old, he watched his father weep after the most devastating defeat in Brazil's history, and he swore he would win the World Cup for him. 8 years later, at just 17, that boy from a slum in Bauru would step onto the world stage and begin turning soccer into the world's beautiful game. They would call him the King. But before Pele conquered the world, he had to survive a childhood that nearly crushed the dream before it began. Edson Arantes do Nascimento entered the world on October 23, 1940, in the small town of Três Corações. His earliest memories unfolded in Bauru, where the family settled among the crowded shacks and muddy lanes of a São Paulo slum. There was never enough money. His father, João Ramos do Nascimento, known to everyone as Dondinho, had once been a promising striker, but a knee injury in 1952 ended both his career and the family's main hope for security. From that moment, survival became a daily calculation. Edson's mother, Celeste, kept the household together with a clear-eyed sense of sacrifice. She often warned her son, "There's no money in the game," and meant it. Each day, the boy they called Dico shined shoes at the train station, sold peanuts on street corners, and took odd jobs as a servant, bringing home coins to help buy rice or beans. Yet even in those years of want, football was never far away. Edson and his friends played barefoot on dusty lots, their feet toughened by gravel and heat. A real ball was out of reach, so he made his own, stuffing a cotton sock with newspaper, tying it off with string, and sending it flying between rocks that served as goalposts. The game was as much about imagination as escape. Every touch, every feint, every goal scored on those uneven streets felt like a small act of defiance against hunger and hardship. In the quiet moments, Edson believed that football could be more than a pastime. It could be his way out, a path to something bigger than poverty and loss. Long before anyone called him Pelé, destiny was already taking shape, hidden in the rhythm of a barefoot child chasing a homemade ball through the alleys of Bauru. On July 16, 1950, the world's largest stadium filled with 173,850 hopeful voices. Brazil, the host nation, needed only a draw to claim its first World Cup. But as the final whistle blew, it was Uruguay who celebrated, winning 2-1 at the Maracanã. For millions, it was a national heartbreak. For a 9-year-old boy in Bauru, it was the day everything changed. Edson watched his father, Dondinho, a proud man who rarely showed emotion, break down in tears. That image cut deeper than any defeat. In that moment, Edson made a vow that would shape his entire life. He told his father, "Don't cry, Papa, I'll win the World Cup for you." The promise was not just a child's comfort, it became a mission. Every afternoon, Edson threw himself into the game with a new sense of purpose. On the narrow streets and dusty lots of Bauru, he played for hours, his feet dancing over uneven ground, chasing a ball made from rags and string. Street soccer taught him to improvise, to turn obstacles into opportunities. But it was futsal, indoor football played in tight spaces, that sharpened his reflexes and balance. The small, heavy ball demanded precision and lightning-fast decisions. Each touch, each feint, each burst of speed was a step toward something greater. The pain of Maracanã became fuel. The vow made in a moment of sorrow began to feel possible, even inevitable, as Edson's skill grew. What started as a promise to a father in the shadow of defeat was turning into the foundation for a legend. The name Pelé began as a joke in a Bauru classroom. Young Edson, trying to mimic his football idol, mispronounced the goalkeeper Bilé's name as Pelé. The other children teased him relentlessly, chanting the nickname until it stuck. What started as playground mockery would soon echo in stadiums across the world. At age 11, Edson's raw brilliance caught the attention of Waldemar de Brito, a former Brazilian international known for his sharp eye for talent. De Brito watched the skinny boy weave through defenders on the dusty fields and saw something no one else did. He told anyone who would listen, "This boy will be the greatest soccer player in the world." De Brito's conviction led him to recommend Edson to Santos FC, one of Brazil's top clubs. In 1956, at just 15, Edson, now Pelé, took the field for Santos. Facing men twice his age, he scored on his debut. Within months, he became the club's top scorer, outpacing veterans and dazzling crowds with his speed, vision, and uncanny knack for goals. Brazil, still haunted by heartbreak, had found its next phenomenon. The legend of Pelé was no longer a promise. It was already taking shape on the pitch. In the summer of 1958, a 17-year-old boarded a plane for Sweden, carrying not just a suitcase, but the weight of a promise made to his father 8 years before. Pelé's World Cup dream nearly ended before it began. A knee injury in training left him sidelined for Brazil's first 2 matches. Doctors debated, coaches worried, but manager Vicente Feola believed in the teenager's spark. After days of anxious recovery, the team physician finally gave the all-clear. On June 15th, Pelé stepped onto the field against the Soviet Union, becoming the youngest player ever to appear in a World Cup match. He played with a bandage on his knee, but the fear was gone. In the quarterfinal against Wales, the match was deadlocked until the 66th minute. Pelé took a pass in the box, spun, and fired a left-footed shot past the Welsh keeper. 1 goal, and Brazil advanced. The world took notice. 4 days later, in the semifinal against France, he unleashed something the sport had never seen. 3 times he found the net, once with a clever flick, twice with bursts of speed and balance that left defenders frozen. At 17 years and 244 days, Pelé became the youngest player to score a World Cup hat-trick, a record that still stands. The final in Stockholm was a clash of nerves and hope. Pelé wore the number 10 shirt, a number handed to him by chance, but destined to become legendary. In the 55th minute, he juggled the ball over a Swedish defender and volleyed it home. Later, he soared above the crowd to head in Brazil's 5th. When the whistle blew, Brazil had its first World Cup title, and Pelé had scored 6 goals in 4 matches. That summer, television cameras carried his image across continents. Millions watched as a boy from Bauru, once mocked for his nickname, became the sport's first global superstar. In a matter of weeks, Pelé had kept his promise, lifted a nation, and transformed a game forever. Brazil's new 4-2-4 formation handed Pelé a rare kind of freedom. No longer bound to the touchline or locked into a single role, he drifted between defenders, reading the game with a vision that seemed almost instinctive. Every touch was a risk and an invitation, a backheel to a teammate, a sudden burst of pace, a shot from nothing. His play blended the street-learned improvisation of Bauru with the sharp intelligence of a chess master, and the physical power to outpace or outjump anyone in his path. The world began to understand what Brazilians called Jogo Bonito, the beautiful game. Pelé's creativity and joy, his ability to improvise under pressure, became the sport's new standard. The number 10, once just a shirt handed out at random, now carried a weight recognized everywhere. It came to mean artistry, leadership, and the courage to take responsibility when it mattered most. For generations, attackers from Buenos Aires to Barcelona measured themselves against the template Pelé created, chasing the same sense of freedom and wonder he brought to every match. Santos Football Club became the stage where Pelé's genius played out week after week, turning a provincial team into a global phenomenon. Between 1956 and 1974, Santos lifted the Campeonato Paulista trophy 8 times, dominating São Paulo's fiercely contested state championship. The club's rise did not stop there. With Pelé leading the attack, Santos captured the Taça Brazil 5 times, conquering the national title in 1961, 1962, 1963, 1964, and 1965. These victories transformed Santos from local champions into a national powerhouse. Continental glory soon followed. In 1962 and 1963, Santos claimed back-to-back Copa Libertadores titles, defeating the best team South America had to offer. Each triumph earned the club a place in the Intercontinental Cup, where they faced and beat Europe's finest. In 1962, Santos overwhelmed Benfica, with Pelé scoring a hat-trick in Lisbon. The following year, they overcame AC Milan in a dramatic 2-legged final, cementing their status as the world's best. But the legend of Santos was not written only in trophies. The club embarked on international tours that took Pelé and his teammates across 5 continents. Stadiums in New York, Paris, Lagos, and Tokyo filled with fans eager to witness the magic of Brazilian football. Each match was a showcase, each city a new audience for the style and joy that Pelé brought to the game. Santos became more than a club. They became ambassadors of the beautiful game, spreading Brazilian flair to every corner of the world. Pelé's goals did more than win matches. They became living symbols, woven into Brazil's memory and football's global mythology. On a humid night at the Maracanã in 1961, he picked up the ball in his own half, danced past defender after defender, and finished with a strike so dazzling that journalists demanded a permanent tribute. The stadium installed a plaque to honor what became known as the Gol de Placa, a goal so legendary that it had to be recreated for future generations, since no camera had captured its full glory. Moments like these blurred the line between sport and folklore. Years later, when Pelé reached his 1,000th career goal, scored from the penalty spot against Vasco da Gama at the same stadium, play stopped and a nation erupted in celebration. Fans stormed the field, newspapers ran his image across front pages, and the number itself became a national myth. Each unforgettable dribble, each impossible finish, changed the way football was remembered, not as a record book, but as a collection of stories, each one echoing far beyond the pitch. In 1961, the Brazilian government issued an extraordinary decree. Pelé was officially declared a national treasure, Tesouro Nacional, by order of President João Goulart. The document classified him as a non-exportable asset, placing him in the same legal category as the country's greatest cultural artifacts. Any attempt to sign Pelé from abroad now required presidential approval, a safeguard never granted. At the same time, Europe's football elite lined up with offers. Real Madrid, Juventus, Inter Milan, and Manchester United all submitted formal bids, hoping to lure the world's brightest star across the Atlantic. Each was turned away. Pelé's loyalty to Santos and the government's intervention fused his career with Brazil's identity. He became more than a player. He was the living symbol of a nation's pride, and his story was no longer just about football, but about belonging to Brazil itself. Pain became a constant companion as Pelé's career entered its most grueling years. In 1962, just as Brazil looked to defend its World Cup crown in Chile, a torn thigh muscle against Czechoslovakia forced him to the sidelines. The rules of the time offered no substitutions for injury, so he stayed on the field, limping and unable to run, before finally bowing out of the tournament after just 25 minutes of play. Brazil would lift the trophy again, but Pelé watched from the shadows, his dream interrupted by the limits of his own body. 4 years later, in England, the violence reached a new peak. Defenders, with little fear of punishment, targeted Pelé relentlessly. Against Portugal, he was kicked twice in quick succession, first on the thigh, then on the knee. The referee offered no protection. Bandaged and limping, he finished the match as a passenger, unable to defend himself or his team. The emotional toll was crushing. For the first time, Pelé considered walking away from the World Cup forever. Yet, even in despair, he refused to let pain or injustice write the final chapter. His determination to return stronger never wavered, and the setbacks became fuel for the legend that would rise again. In the summer of 1970, Pelé returned to the global stage in Mexico, not as a prodigy, but as the architect of a team destined to become legend. At 29, he wore the captain's calm, guiding a new generation with a steady hand and a vision sharpened by years of triumph and heartbreak. The world watched as Brazil took the field against reigning champions England in Guadalajara. It was a contest of equals until Pelé rose above the defense, meeting Jairzinho's cross with a header so powerful that only Gordon Banks's miraculous save could deny him. Yet it was Pelé's orchestration, his unhurried control of tempo, that set Brazil apart. The 1-0 victory sent a message. The king had returned, and Brazil's football was once again poetry in motion. In the semi-final, Uruguay struck first, but Pelé's leadership never wavered. He drew defenders, opened space, and threaded passes that allowed Brazil to answer, then surge ahead. His assist to Jairzinho was a masterclass in anticipation, a reminder that genius is as much about generosity as glory. When the final whistle sounded at 3-1, Brazil stood on the edge of history. The final in Mexico City brought Brazil face to face with Italy. Under the midday sun, Pelé leaped above the Italian defense to score the opener, then set up two more, including the now immortal pass to Carlos Alberto for the fourth goal. No team had ever played with such freedom, such unity, such joy. The 4-1 victory crowned Brazil world champions for a third time, and Pelé as the only player to win 3 World Cups. In that moment, mastery became myth, and the 1970 team became the gold standard by which all attacking football would be measured. Pelé, no longer just a promise or a prodigy, stood alone at the summit of the game. Fame brought Pelé into a new arena where the world watched every move. His face appeared on billboards from Tokyo to Paris, and his name became shorthand for excellence. Yet the wealth and attention came with risk. By the early 1970s, poor business advice and failed investments left him facing serious financial trouble. Then, in 1975, he stunned the sporting world by signing with the New York Cosmos. The deal, reported as one of the richest in sports at the time, turned American stadiums into carnivals. Crowds swelled, celebrities flocked to matches, and children across the United States began dreaming in the language of soccer. When Pele retired from professional play, his influence only grew. He became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, using his fame to support children's health and education worldwide. As Brazil's Minister of Sport in the 1990s, he championed the Pelé Law, which freed players from restrictive contracts and gave athletes new rights. In every role, Pelé changed not just how the game was played, but who could shape its future. Beneath the legend was a man whose life unfolded in public and private, often at odds with each other. Pelé's family story was marked by joy and turbulence, 3 marriages, 7 children, and relationships that drew headlines as often as his goals did. He faced criticism for his choices off the field and for his reluctance to speak out during Brazil's most turbulent political years. Even so, he remained a figure of hope for millions, using his name to champion children's health and education. In his final years, Pelé battled illness with the same resolve he once brought to the pitch, undergoing surgery and enduring long hospital stays before succumbing to cancer at 82. When news of his death broke in December 2022, the world paused. Tributes poured in from presidents, footballers, artists, and fans, each recognizing the rare athlete who became a symbol of possibility. Statues, murals, and a flood of messages on every continent bore witness to his unique place in history. The world still measures greatness by the standard he set, not just in trophies, but in the joy, creativity, and humanity he brought to the beautiful game. Even now, every child chasing a ball in a dusty field inherits a trace of his dream. Pele lifted a nation, changed a sport, and proved that genius can rise from the humblest soil. Today, as billions watch the beautiful game, his vision shapes every goal, every cheer. The legend endures because hope, like football, belongs to everyone. What does his legacy inspire in you? Share your thoughts below.